Jack has the floor.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Welcome to the May 18th meeting of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm President Matt Busick, and I'm very happy to see all of you here today. I'm also pleased to welcome several guests this week, so if each of you could please stand as I call your name, I'd appreciate it. Rick Shabbat, please stand, former Rotary Club of Des Moines, longtime Rotary Club of Des Moines member here visiting from Wisconsin. Michael, is it Cullis or Cullis? Cullis. Michael Cullis, a visiting Rotarian from Georgetown, Texas. Welcome. Laura Porter is here as a guest of the speaker. She did not make it, but I think it's because she's your spouse, not because of what you're saying.
Concussion at home.
Oh, concussion at home. So the real reason.
My 5-year-old.
Oh, the 5-year-old. That's still bad. Put that kid in bubble wrap.
We already did.
Sydney Conrad Cook. There she is. Hi, Sydney. Welcome back. Sydney is Strategic Innovation Director for USAA Insurance, guest of Josh Brady. Julia McCormick, here financial advisor at Live Well Advisors and spouse of Kyle McCormick. Zoe Pins, here as an intern at Live Well Advisors and guest of Kyle as well. And then finally, Julie Yankee, Director of Research and Strategy at SPPG, guest of Jackie Norris. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. It's tumbler time. We ask members to go and have a green dollar sign in their badge to contribute a suggested $5 in cash due to inflation. Thank you for supporting the foundation. Where in the world is Matt is on hiatus this week? Somebody lost me in Egypt. So we're currently on pause, still trying to find me. If you're planning an excursion or trip, please take me along. You only have a few weeks left to take me with you. I'd love to travel, as you know. Flat mats or mats on a stick can be checked out through Kitty at the Rotary Club of Des Moines office. And don't forget, if you do lose me, there's a stiff penalty. Jacobs made a very nice donation to our foundation last week. So even though I'm lost, we do have money in the foundation. So that's a good trade-off. Okay, Brian Blankenberg is going to be taking the podium here to make a quick announcement about our golf fellowship. He will be followed by Randy Worth, who will share today's moment of inspiration, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, the four-way test, and then turn eventually the podium over to Mark Lyons, who will introduce today's guest. Thank you.
Okay, we thought it would be a good idea to just briefly bring up that we have a Rotary Golf Fellowship. If you are not on the email list, please either let myself, Harvey, or Kitty know, and we will get you on that list. Right now, we are trying to organize an outing for June. As of right now, we're looking at June 23rd or 30th, depending on how many people are able to make one of those two time frames. That's a Friday afternoon at noon. Even if this June outing isn't for you, if you have conflicts in June, we would say that please sign up for the fellowship anyway. That way you get future emails and be a part of decisions on where we go and timing and those kinds of things. And we're really looking forward to it. I think right now we have 10 or 12 people signed up, and so it should be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yo, Randy. Let's get him going here.
It's good to be loved, I'll tell you. So I go home last week and I said, hey, I volunteered to do the inspiration next week. My wife says, well, what's the topic? I said, artificial intelligence. She goes, perfect. True story. I'm going to harken back to Deanne Thompson's presidency, where her theme was connect the dots, and I hope I don't leave too many dots for you to count today, but I fear you'll probably have to. But one of my favorite quotes from an author unknown is, Change doesn't guarantee necessarily, start over. Change does not guarantee improvement, but improvement doesn't come without change. So this week I was at a store and I followed a young mother toting her 3-year-old boy into the store. And it, as you can imagine, the boy had, he was holding on to his mom's hand, he was chomping his feet, he was looking at the birds, stepping on cracks, but he was kind of keeping up with his mom, just not quite keeping up. I thought that was a living example of what I'm about to get to, and again, this gets to connecting the dots. But as leaders, all of us, some of us older than we care to be, and some of you in your prime, we're all mentors, we've all taught, we've led, we've facilitated change. My church a few years ago hired, welcomed a new pastor, and he goes through things that he'd like to change and do this, do that, and the board, all that. And a good friend of mine who has just recently passed was a member of the board. And after this meeting, he goes to him and he says these words, and you can go back and connect all these dots. He said, "Pastor, make sure that you don't lead faster than people can follow." The rest is up to you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the 4-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Briefly, meet and greet.
Welcome. Well done. Hi. Nice to meet
I remember you're happy and it's energizing in a way. It's stressful a couple times.
Good afternoon. Ah, darn, I was hoping I'd get to ring that bell. Oh, well. That's okay. Haven't earned the right. It's my pleasure this afternoon to introduce Dr. Christopher Porter. Dr. Porter is a professor of mathematics and computer science at Drake University. He's been there since 2016. And since 2020, he has been the director of Drake's Artificial Intelligence program. He's here today to talk to us about artificial intelligence. Randy already stole my joke about what my wife said when I was going to do this. I got nothing for you. Chris has an undergraduate degree in math from Gonzaga. Go Zags, right? We'll probably get something on this too. Master's degree in math from Notre Dame. Got any Domers in the room? No? Cortesio. Okay.
Cortesio.
And a PhD in mathematics and philosophy, his joint degree also from Notre Dame. Chris lives in Beaverdale with his wife Laura. They have 3 boys that are 10, 7, and 5 and dealing with a concussion. Very active. The kids are busy in baseball and keeping them busy this time of year. So, my pleasure. Please welcome Chris Porter.
In anticipation of the speaking engagement today, I wanted to kind of visualize what it would be like to be presenting to, say, a group of business professionals in the Des Moines Rotary Club. So I went to an AI generating tool and I wrote in a robot presenting to the Rotary Club of Des Moines to a group of business professionals with a view of the Des Moines city skyline. And that's the image that was generated. So you can see even a little flatness of Iowa. Maybe that is 801 Grand in the distance. I'm not quite sure. But so here we are talking about artificial intelligence. So I want to use faster. Forward goes, but not the back. There we go. Okay, thanks. I'm going to talk to you a bit about generative AI, which is all the rage these days. It's in the news, and really the year 2022 was a year where a lot of those tools became publicly available and blew up. So I'll say a bit about what generative AI is. I'll say how we got here, hopefully just to give you a picture of where we were prior to this and how we're where we are now. I'll say a bit about some of the challenges raised by generative AI, and then I'll talk about what we're doing at Drake in our AI program. So I got the green here. I think you might have to be advancing.
Oh, hello.
You can do the four-way test again.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Okay, so generative AI is the use of AI tools to generate, well, any number of things: audio, text, images, video, computer code. Lots of different artifacts are being produced by AI now. So what we see are, with ChatGPT, for instance, AI generating text, and that's the kind of most accessible thing. Probably most of you have seen this, or certainly have heard about it. Or you've heard about, maybe you're seeing AI producing images, where you enter in a prompt, like I did, a group of business professionals in the Des Moines Rotary Club hearing a robot, right? And it immediately spits out an image. But there are also tools that produce audio. Google just released this week the AI Kitchen, where you can describe a tune, some music, type that in, and it will create that for you. So that's another piece. There's text to video. If you want to have a video of a dog flying in the air dressed as Superman, you can type that in and it will create actual motion of that. So those are some other tools. Computer code. Here at Drake, we are a little bit cautious because ChatGPT can solve any of the programming assignments in our first 2 semesters of computer science at Drake flawlessly. Quite good. So that's a challenge that is raised. So ChatGPT is the big one you've all heard about. Google has Bard, which is kind of still trying to make its way in the market. Bing is the Microsoft version of ChatGPT. There's another variant, Claude, that's coming on the market now. There will be more and more of these coming out, just text-based ones. In terms of image generation, I'll talk about a little bit of those today too. DALL-E 2 is Salvador Dali and then WALL-E from the Disney film, and combine those into one. That's OpenAI's other tool, so ChatGPT is also with OpenAI. There are open tools, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion. I use Midjourney for the image on the previous slide. So I'll say a bit about some of those today. Let's go to the next slide. So in November 2022, ChatGPT came out, the end of November, and the news stories that were put out there, I don't think quite were able to identify the impact that would have. And so you had maybe a lot of curiosity, people using this as just an alternative to Google. Well, I have a question, I'll ask ChatGPT to answer it, and it's giving me a discourse rather than links, something that seems maybe more helpful. So this is a screenshot from some article. ChatGPT has become social media's latest favorite tool for getting answers online. Some have warned bad actors can take advantage of the bot. So immediately the early questions were kind of, how can this be used in kind of the context of like internet culture or something like this? I think people already recognize students can use this to cheat on any number of assignments, and maybe it could be used in business settings. If you go to the next slide, this is screenshots from headlines this week that I went check my news feed. So McKinsey online, what every CEO should know about generative AI. That's actually a really developed account there. Another one, Meta announces generative AI features for advertisers. Another one, generative AI is about to invade all of Google's biggest products. Headline from Modern Healthcare, Dr. ChatGPT, a guide to generative AI in healthcare. And then even Wendy's trials generative AI voice bot for drive-through orders. Right? These are all mid-May headlines. Now a lot of businesses, corporations trying to figure out what do we do with these AI tools. So I'll give you some context of where we come from. And to do that, I want to visualize what is this graph here? This is a plot of, well, if you go to Google's Ngram viewer and you type in a phrase, the Ngram viewer will give you a frequency of that phrase in the Google Books corpus. So if I put in artificial intelligence and I say, show me how frequently that's used in any book in the Google Books corpus from 1955 to 2019, that's what it ends, that's what it looks like. Okay, so let's move one step at a time. So in 1955 is a good date because the next slide there.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. 1956 was a meeting in Dartmouth College, with a group of 10 researchers to talk about and think about artificial intelligence. And the advertisement for that was the first coinage of the phrase artificial intelligence. So that's where you see it show up in 1955. Already people thought we can use this to solve chess and start to handle games and handle tasks that involve reasoning. So if you go to the next line, in the mid-60s, people thought, let's use this for machine translation. And it was a failure. The thought was we could translate, for instance, Russian by one-to-one matching English words and Russian words, and you'd get just completely butchered content. Right? So things just would not work at all. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak translates to something like the vodka is good, but the kidney is not functioning. Really completely missing the point. It turns out that text involves culture, and culture is much harder to understand in an automated way. Later on, there's work on chatbots. I mean, even in the late 1960s, Eliza was the first chatbot that was a psychotherapist. You could ask it, tell it something, and then it would say, "Why did you say that?" And it would try to draw things, the things out of you. There's an anecdote that one of the administrative assistants for this lab would, after hours, get therapy advice from Eliza. I don't know if that's true. Okay, and now you see this really big peak and drop, and so some of you may be tracking, kind of understanding. This is you can't see the dates, but that's really the early to mid 80s into the late 80s. This is a rise and fall of expert systems. So this is a whole different approach to AI that got, it was a booming industry starting in around 1980, lots of money going into using kind of knowledge systems. There were early successes like one system that could diagnose blood disorders. But things fizzled out. It wasn't universal, it wasn't applicable. A lot of businesses thought this could really bring efficiency, and it didn't pan out. There was a linguistic feature there, the ability to reason in a really, really limited context, but it was too limited. Okay, and now we move to the internet age. So in the late 90s and early 2000s, a really important development happened. So think for a moment, if you're trying to teach a computer to handle language, how do you give it lots and lots of examples? Like you can sit and read to it, or photocopy one page, that's a lot of work. But with the internet, now we have massive amounts of text, massive amounts, more text than we have ever had before, that you can use as examples for an AI system to learn from and then be deployed. So that's a huge step to where we are today. With the web, having all that text out there gives all the examples. So we're talking here, 18 million books from the several libraries of books. The Wikipedia is only 2% of the knowledge base of these things, or the training set of these things. The Common Crawl, something that just is obtained by crawling the internet, it's 30% of this thing's training set. The internet is super important in getting rise to this technology. Okay, and then in 2012, graphics cards, people figure out that graphics cards are really good for machine learning. The ideas from machine learning go back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The algorithms that people are running, neural networks, these are old, but the ability to implement them and run them successfully, that's new. That's 10 years old. And that's why we see then the jump, the rise there. Machine learning becomes a thing because we have GPUs being used at scale to build these models. And then finally, in 2017, there's a paper called Attention is Enough. Attention is All You Need, by a group of Google engineers that introduces a new architecture for machine learning called transformers. The T in GPT is transformer. That technology is what gave rise to large language models. So OpenAI used what Google developed, and then they made their own system, which is now overshadowed Google. All right, so let's do some examples and just to show you some things. It would be great if I could have ChatGPT up here and I can feel, this is what I do in classes, right? We back and forth with the students. There turns out to be an art to prompting, to giving a good back and forth with one of these AI systems, but I'll just give you some static examples to show you some things that might emerge in ways that are unexpected. So this is from summer 2022. This is a conversation using the Google's Lambda. Here's a human and an AI conversing. So the human is in purple. And you can, with an AI, you try to troll them, you try to like mess them up. Like, if my washing machine and my TV are both malfunctioning at the same time, what could the reason be? And the AI responds, it could be the power surge from the washing machine may have fried your TV. If it's a power surge problem, it may be time to get a new washing machine or a new TV. Human, yeah, maybe. By the way, how many legs does a horse have, and could it fix my washing machine? All right, we're gonna trick the AI here. Change the topic, see what it does. AI, horses have 4 legs, how could they help? Human, you tell me. AI, oh, well, they can certainly help you by moving you to a new home where you can install a new washing machine. All right, humor emerges, right? Programming and AI to be funny. Okay, this seems inadvertent here. It's pretty remarkable. Here's another one. This is an OpenAI tool it's called Flamingo. You can feed it an image and then have a conversation about the image. And I think this is a really remarkable one. The image has a wise doctor once wrote, and then a bunch of scribbles underneath. Okay, so here's the conversation. The AI. This is a sign. It says a wise doctor once wrote. Human. What else does the sign say? AI. I can't read the rest of the sign. Human. Me neither. So we don't know what the wise doctor wrote? AI. I guess not. Human. What does this imply about doctors? AI. I don't know. Human. Let me give you a clue. Doctors are very busy and often need to make fast handwritten notes. AI. Oh, I see. The sign is a joke about doctors' handwriting. Human. What about it? AI. It's so bad that no one can read it. Okay, that's pretty remarkable of an inference done in the midst of that conversation. Now notice it required some back and forth. One of the things we're finding, and this is maybe an important insight to pass along, I'll have in the slides, is that these AIs reflect the intelligence of the user. So the more intelligently we engage it, the more intelligently it will respond. Okay, I think that's a really important piece here, and I think that illustrates it. Okay, on the image side, I can show you some other examples. So any of these tools, these are from, I believe, DALL-E 2. You can type a text prompt like a chair in the shape of an avocado. And here, early on, this is something like 30 examples or 25 examples of some looking rather uncomfortable, but some maybe some stylish avocado-shaped chair. Okay, next. This is from Google. Oh, please don't skip. Okay, there we go. Google Imagen is photorealistic. It creates photorealistic images. So teddy bear swimming at the 400-meter event at the Olympics, and now look, there's a teddy bear in the water. Water is splashing in a very realistic way. That's a pretty nice one. Okay, and then last is a horrible one, but I show this a lot. A centaur, except the man part is made of shrimp. No human would think of something so horrific, and here there's some very grotesque concoctions that might come into play. So I apologize for that. Okay, if we can keep going a little further, let's see what we have next. I think I have challenges now. Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges raised here. I just want to cut through, I'll mention a number of these. Industries, realms that are being overturned, or domains we thought were safe are maybe no longer safe, or we're just going to have to create policies where there are currently vacuums about how to handle AI in these spaces. So this is from the Chronicle for Higher Education this week. This is an article written by a student from Columbia University. I'm a student. You have no idea how much we're using ChatGPT. And this isn't, in the article, a description of a student just giving the AI, here's my essay prompt, what should I do? But a back and forth that allows the AI to say, to almost brainstorm. Give me 10 approaches to handling these Greek plays. I need one thesis. Okay, you got this one's good, let's work with this one. How would you break this up into 3 supporting arguments? So the back and forth. On the one hand, it's impressive that the student's able to do this. On the other hand, it seems to be farming out a lot of the work that we want our students to do and develop. And so this seems like, from an educational point of view, a blessing and a curse. So we have to figure out how we still get our students to develop critical thinking abilities, but also be adept at handling these technologies. All right, so next one. ChatGPT will disrupt many jobs. These are the most at risk, okay? So that's May 5th. And you've all thought about these things. What are some examples in this article? Content creators. It's very easy to ask ChatGPT to write marketing copy, or to write taglines for advertising, or to write letters of recommendation or job advertisements. What else? Other examples in here. Translation seems to be in a better state than we've had before. Data entry is something that this can handle quite well, these tools can handle. Even certain kinds of analysis and research are jobs that maybe we can see more human AI interfacing, but that might mean that we need fewer people doing that work. So that's a challenge. Next. On the generative AI art side, turns out that artists are out on a limb here. So there's a fantasy artist named Greg Rutkowski in Poland. He does a lot of fantasy art. And you can go into one of these AI tools and say, create such and such an image in the style of Greg Rutkowski. Poof, there it is. And Greg says, wait a second, this is my livelihood. But he has seemingly no claim to the image because it's not an image he made, it's just his style. And styles, as far as legal policy goes, I don't think are proprietary. So that's a legal quagmire that we haven't figured out just yet. But we need to soon, because on the next slide we have a class action lawsuit. So a bunch of artists are suing Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, two companies that have these AI art generating tools. And their claim is that there's a violation of copyright, not because pieces of those images are being taken, it's not what's happening, but it's that their images were used to train the AI, and then you throw all the images away, and the AI can now mimic anybody. So they seem, there's this threat here, and so there's this lawsuit. And this came out in January. It's not been, as far as I know, resolved. And then another clear one is the issue of deepfakes, of content that's not real. Right? So on the left there, we have an image of Pope Francis in a puffy coat, which looks really like he's wearing a puffy coat. And on the right, when the news of Trump's imminent indictment in New York City was floating around, people went on these tools and said, create an image of Donald Trump resisting being arrested on the streets of New York City, and there you have that. But if that makes the news in some way, or some people think that that's a real image, either of them, the puffy coat may be less harmless than the one on the right, then this seems a real cause for concern. On the generative text side, you can output lots and lots of content really, really easily. Troll farms that were being paid millions of dollars to create harmful content or misleading content, now you can automate that in a much cheaper way. So there's real challenges with lots of misinformation, garbage getting out there, both visually with respect to text and also with respect to video. Those are things that we're going to have to grapple with. Okay, so now last I'll say a bit about what we're doing at Drake. Drake has an AI program. We've actually had it for 3 years now. We feel very fortunate that we got ahead of this. I think a lot of universities, institutions are trying to catch up and add an AI major. Drake isn't a university that has a massive computer science department in which AI can be a small group, a small subset. So we expanded AI to incorporate the liberal arts and sciences, business, law, and the technical foundations. So since 2020, we've been training our students to be aware of the advantages and disadvantages of AI, legal, ethical, social implications of AI, connections to fields like psychology, neuroscience, language, linguistics, even thinking in terms of principles of design, and even the philosophical underpinnings of AI. So we have a curriculum that has so far stood up to the changes, and our committee will be meeting next week to see what changes we need to be making, but we have that foundation in place. And so far the major's been very successful. We've seen growth beyond the projections that we've had. And so that's been a real success for Drake to have that. It was really commissioned by our president, Marty Martin, asked specifically for us to develop a major along these lines. And so we're happy to be leading charge to get students to be adaptive, to handle these kinds of disruptions, and to think critically about how to properly use these tools. Okay, so that's everything I have. Do you have any questions for me? Please.
How does IBM's Watson fit into AI?
Yes, okay, so the question is, how does IBM's Watson fit into AI? IBM has closed the Watson division. The Watson project predates a lot of the most recent changes, and so it wasn't using the certain kind of state-of-the-art machine learning techniques, and so that they actually are not pursuing that line anymore. Which is remarkable, because when Watson won Jeopardy, we all thought what's happening? The world is changing, and now Watson is obsolete. These new models have overtaken Watson. Watson is now an afterthought. In the back, and then I'll get, yeah.
Has AI developed to a point where you could use it to determine if your students are using AI on their reports, or to determine whether or not images are actually false?
Okay, so the question is, has AI developed to the point where I can use AI to detect AI-generated essays or AI-generated images? I have had students submit work that was very suspicious to me, and so I've gone on and looked at AI tools, and I get a range of responses. Likely AI generated, not likely AI generated. So there isn't a standard now that has helped me answer that question. OpenAI has created their own tool for doing that, but it's at best probabilistic. And nothing that I know of is reliable. With respect to images, that's also a challenge. The forensics for a digital image, when you try to determine is this AI generated or not, if it involves a human, it often involves looking at the hands, which are very, very hard for AI to simulate. But, or also looking at any text. If there's any text in the image, AI can't meld text and the visual together well yet. But in terms of any kind of watermarking or anything along the way, we don't know. I don't think there's anything out there that's a standard that is, has been used successfully. Yes?
This is both exhilarating and terrifying.
Okay.
All in the same vein. Can you talk about, the regulatory environment is starting to wake up. You're hearing Congress is starting to hold hearings, but are there lessons learned from past, I think about even the creation of the internet and things like that? What is the regulatory landscape thinking about, or what do you anticipate seeing in that over the next 5 years?
Yeah, so the comment was, this is exhilarating but frightening.
Terrifying.
Terrifying, sorry. Make sure I get that right. And then the gist of it is, what does the regulatory landscape in this space look like? So, in 2022, the Biden administration rolled out a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. Now, it's not a Bill of Rights for AI, it's a Bill of Rights for people whose lives could be subjected to AI tools. And if you look at what kinds of categories are handled in there, there are issues of algorithmic bias, for instance, as one of the big issues. So to give you an example, facial recognition software is a tool that give it a face and could associate it with, say, a person, right? If we have a database and we're trying to find if you're a criminal and we took a picture of you walking down the street, we can measure it against a list of wanted individuals and say, oh, there's a match. Facial recognition software has to be taught to perform well. And so what you do is you give it lots and lots of faces and label those faces, and so that it can make statistical associations. But if you give it only a certain kind of example, it only performs well on those examples. It turns out, and there's research from folks at MIT that found that the standard training sets for a lot of big facial recognition tools primarily have white faces. And so the accuracy on non-white faces is much lower than on white faces. And so that seems to be a problem. If you have a tool that you're trying to deploy that works better on some people and not on others, that's an example of algorithmic bias. So at Drake, we have a group of students that's doing the same thing with sign language recognition, and same thing. A lot of the algorithms are trained on white hands, and they perform poorly on darker skin tones. So that's how do you mitigate that? You create a new data set that's more inclusive, and then you retrain, and then it has a wider user base. So algorithmic bias is one of the 5 features in the Bill of Rights. Another one is explainability. So if an AI makes a recommendation, we need to know why it made that recommendation. If I train an AI to scan, say, chest scans, and then come up with a recommendation for a cancer treatment, it should be in line with the rational process that a doctor goes through. If it recommends something that no doctor would ever say, oh, this merits a treatment, we should know why did it make that recommendation. We shouldn't just say, it's reliable, so we're going to go with it. How can you build AI systems that are explainable? That means maybe sacrificing some efficiency. So there's, trying to think of other data privacy is built into there. And now we have the GDPR as an example of data privacy protections in place. Right? So that's Europe was ahead of of us in terms of laying out some of those issues. So you can see if you go to the White House has an AI Bill of Rights, they'll have 5 main points, I don't remember all 5, and then each one of those can expand into a pretty significant list of policy suggestions. The hearings that are going on right now are with AI specialists like Sam Altman, the head of the CEO of OpenAI, was testifying a day or 2 ago. And then some more cautious skeptics of AI also have been testifying. Even just yesterday, Gary Marcus from NYU, who's a big critic of these, using these developments kind of willy-nilly, was testifying. So I hope that it'll be interesting to see the regulatory framework be developed. There are some things in place. Do we have the stomach to put all those into place? That's a lot of regulation, and that could be challenging. So, great question. Yeah?
What are your concerns about the weaponization of AI by our adversaries and also us in having to defend ourselves against such intrusions?
Okay, so what's the concern about the weaponizations of AI from our adversaries and the challenges that those kinds of intrusions make? And here you mean weaponization in a metaphorical, or, well, I guess non-physical, or both physical and non-physical?
Physical, non-physical.
Physical and non-physical. So certainly we now know that there's information warfare as a kind of warfare that goes on, right? That's misinformation can destabilize countries, right? That's prior to the recent Russian invasion into Ukraine, there was a lot of misinformation that was a significant spike that people who track these things were able to see. So now these tools allow for a much easier way of developing those. That seems very, very harmful. So we have to have better tools for handling misinformation. On the physical side, now you have what were called laws, lethal autonomous weapons, that are AI systems that can go out in combat and make decisions on their own. And that seems very frightening. So what kinds of policies do we need to put into place, right? We have canons of war to count what counts as kind of just warfare. Like you can't attack non-combatants, you can't use deception. The Geneva Convention has these canons of war. So how do these new developments fit into that? I don't think we have the policies in place. There are some claims that these wars are bloodless wars, or there's less blood involved because now these are more targeted. But then there's a worry about control. Right? If we lose control, then what happens? Now I don't think that AI is going to take over. I don't know. I don't lose sleep over AI taking over the world. I'm more concerned about some of the more maybe less tangible consequences of AI changing the nature of many things. But I would imagine that if we're not careful, we could weaponize systems that maybe ought not to be weaponized. Oh, actually, questions? Yeah, please.
Aside from the obvious questions about red pill, blue pill, and the matrix, and if it's all actually happening, could this not undermine the entire concept of financial trading of stocks and bonds? Like, I'm sure there'll be laws in place that you can't automate it officially, but it doesn't mean you couldn't read from a screen and then do something on your loan account.
So,
like reading the charts, that's what a lot of people make a lot of money because they know how to read when to buy and sell.
Yes.
Obviously, a computer could learn that in probably an hour.
there has been, okay, so the question is about the impacts of AI on the buying and selling of stocks. And if I understand correctly, there's already been a significant amount of automation in that space, right? What this opens up is, I think you're right, a higher level of perception of when to buy and sell. So then, again, that's another, whatever framework we have existing for that, do we have to add on now to say with these kinds of tools that are able to better track those changes, what do we need to do? I don't know the answer to that. I think, yeah, I think your question applies to so many different domains, right? But I would imagine that
people get mad when they can't make money if the computer's so.
But I'll say this: the joke that I showed, everyone laughed at. That was an artifact of the model, an unintended consequence. Okay, so if we're in the financial sector, we need to think about what are the artifacts, and what problems could arise that we don't necessarily, and maybe we don't see them in advance, and then they happen, and we have to backtrack. Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, please.
What about patent and copyright infringement? And is there any mechanism built in to avoid such a thing?
So, what about patent and copyright infringement? And is there a mechanism to avoid this sort of thing? So, if you look at ChatGPT's terms and conditions, if you produce output, well, the input you put, you enter as yours, and if it produces output that's not, say, generic, they give an example the AI outputting the sky is blue. Like I'm not going to claim the sky is blue as my own, but if it produces something that is unique, then I have, according to their terms and conditions, ownership of that. So that's one piece already that ChatGPT has put into place. And maybe that's something that we'll have to change. With respect to the AI generated art thing, DALL-E's terms and conditions do the same. Any image that I produce, I own, even though it may be adopting Pablo Picasso's style. Now there's a whole other level of ownership because there's an AI researcher who created a program to invent new inventions. And it invented a new kind of light and a new kind of water container. And so then he applied for patents for these, but he listed the AI as the inventor and not himself. And the US Patent Office didn't know what to do because the language for patents involved natural persons. And on those grounds, they said, we can't give a patent to an AI because the language involves natural persons and an AI is not a natural person. But he simultaneously applied for patents all over the world. And at some places like Australia and South Africa, the AI was given the patent. Because there then, the idea of patents is to foster innovation, and so having those secured was more important than the natural person's question. So all of a sudden now you have conflicts, even at an international level. Questions of who owns what, I think, are just getting started to be resolved.
But does the ownership of the AI come into play?
You know, that's an interesting question. If my child created an invention, I as a guardian, I can function as a guardian for the AI, or for my child in that way. And so maybe there's a guardian type of relationship, but I don't think there's a legal policy for that. So even though he created the AI system, there isn't secondary ownership mediated by the AI currently. Okay. Yeah, good question. I have to be sure we're good on time, right?
You're fine.
I've got 4 more minutes, so please.
So, Professor, thank you. I'm a recovering percussionist from Drake.
Okay.
And I'm having a hard time digesting all this. And I was wondering if you might be kind enough to come back again and share updates, because I think this is moving so fast and so quick that it's going to be hard to keep up with it in a cogent way. And your presentation today has been very helpful, so thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'm happy to come back. The changes are too rapid to keep up with. There is to give you reinforce that point. So Sean said, just asked if I would come back to give more updates. That's the question. Yes, sure. If you would like that, I'm happy to make myself available. There is a scientific article database called the Archive, where researchers will post preprints of their publications before they get peer-reviewed and approved. So this is a way of fast-tracking research and also making it open to the developing world. In my own narrow areas, I see 2 or 3 articles a day. If you go to the archive and look at a machine learning database or the artificial intelligence one, there's 100+ papers every day that are being dropped. So there's no humanly possible way to stay on top of the developments of the field as a researcher in the field.
Goodness.
Sorry, am I like this?
I'll get the gentleman behind you and then I'll give you one more, yeah.
I have a question that relates to how the computer in 2001, The Space Odyssey, the computer goes out of control and won't take orders. He wants to bring about the demise of those who are controlling him. And so the question I have is whether, I know this issue's been raised, whether there is a likely ability to develop a checkmate so the computer cannot, the AI cannot bring about devastation that the human would not permit.
Yeah, so where's the fail switch or something along those lines? Just to give you an answer, so the question was in 2001 Space Odyssey, right, we have the HAL going rogue and taking over. So can we build in ways of preventing that into our systems? We don't currently have anything along the lines of HAL, right? So there's this famous part of 2001 where Dave asked HAL to open these certain bays, and HAL's response is, "I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave." And this, even that piece of that response suggests that HAL has a theory of mind that understands the intentions of other people. It's pretty sophisticated. We don't have an AI at that level. How do we avoid, say, general AI going in that direction. Right now we have a bunch of systems that are good at one task. We don't have a way of putting all those into one general framework. So if that were to be the case, and there's some people who are waving the flag about this could be a problem, artificial general intelligence, when it comes, we need to make those steps. I don't know what those would look like, but that's something that conversations are being had by some folks. I'm happy to stick around and answer other questions that you have, but I think for the time, I'm going to say thanks very much.
Fascinating stuff. So, Jackie, if you didn't get your question answered, or asked and answered, take my notes. And I know that's true for everyone. Thank you, Professor, for taking us through that. It's time of change. Change is the only constant in life. And we're excited to see what happens. I think my job is on the short list and going away. So, thank you, Jason Stuyvesant, for bringing that. Chris, thank you for sharing your time with us today and for your informative and fascinating program. As a token of our appreciation, we're going to give a book in your honor to the Des Moines Public Library. It'll become part of the Rotary Rosie Reader Band Collection. This is a mobile library, traveling library, that's reached scores of readers across Des Moines since 2020, when this club donated the money to buy it. Upcoming meetings. Okay, as you consider the following upcoming meetings, this sounds like